Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josh Snipes, and today we're going to be doing a fun topic that I actually talked about on the subreddit Siege Academy. I'm going to be leaving a link down in the description for Siege Academy in case you want your questions answered by me or anyone else. I'm usually a regular there, so I see people all the time that ask questions, and they recognize me, so it's pretty cool. There's a very good community built under Siege Academy. It's not very toxic at all. But with that being said, let's jump right into Pulse versus Valkyrie. You can see that from the title of the video, but what does that actually mean? What am I actually asking? So the question actually was on the Reddit post, which one is better, or which one kind of has more use, especially now with how the meta's changed and how the different buffs and nerfs to both characters, kind of just all around, like what character is the best pick and what my opinion is on them. So before I kind of give you what my take is on it, I'm gonna just compare both characters, both their pros, their cons, their counters, and their uses, and kind of what you can actually do with them and where they lack and where they excel in the game. So first off, we're going to do the pros, and I'm going to show the pros on screen here of what Valkyrie and what Pulse, what I believe their pros are. But the first pro that I want to do is their gadgets. So going over Valkyrie's gadget, you have 3 cameras that you can pretty much put anywhere. There's not really much of a range cap on them. As long as you can see it, as long as there's line of sight to it, you can normally put the camera there and have line of sight without actually having to peek it yourself. Now, this is really important to holding different angles, especially if you hide that cam somewhere. So say if you're playing in Border or something like that and you hide it in a room and they don't know, you can get a lot of coverage in that room, especially if it's a lot more open. You can get a lot of coverage that the camera might be able to pick up a lot better than you can, especially if someone's trying to sneak up behind you. You can use it for flank watch, you can use it to see where the push is coming, anything like that. Even on site, it works really, really well. Now, compared to Valkyrie, Pulse doesn't have the same kind of gadget. It does the same kind of thing in that it gathers information, but it doesn't do it in the exact same way. Pulse's gadget, you have your pulse scanner, which scans heartbeats, and everyone's gonna have a heartbeat in the game, obviously, so you're gonna be able to see anyone, but there's a limited range on it. You can only see up to, I think it is 10-15 meters now, somewhere in between there, and that's really, really limiting, especially if you try to put your camera outside. Pulse's gadget is not going to be useful outside, especially because it's attached to you. And that's going to be another thing I'm going to go over in the cons, but Pulse's scanner for the pros, it's very important to have. It can see through smoke. I felt like that was pretty important. The Valkyrie cam can't really do, but with that being said, it also has limited range on that, and that makes a lot of sense for balancing purposes and stuff like that. And they also only have one pulse scanner that only you can use. Another pro for Valkyrie is that she actually has a Desert Eagle. Now, the Desert Eagle is a really, really good secondary, and I feel like it's been used throughout multiple games, not just Rainbow Six Siege, and it's kind of just had this like workhorse type mentality for the gun. It's a really good pistol. It's fun to use, but it's really useful for making holes. It's really useful for making holes above sight, going across sights, anything like that where you need to open something. She does a really good job with her Deagle of doing that, and I think that's just because it's a high caliber gun, and you can actually open a bigger hole with her pistol than you can actually open with her submachine gun. And I really think that this is really useful to playing Valkyrie, especially if you're trying to get a good camera spot that you might not be able to go at. It's a lot quicker to get a hole open with the Deagle than it is with your MPX. Speaking of the MPX is actually a way better gun than the UMP, and I think that it's more of a better gun because it's a headshot machine, not necessarily because of its time to kill. I do think that the MPX is a better gun overall, and I think that having a higher rate of fire in a game like Siege where one bullet is a headshot and that's a kill, that's a really important feature to have on a gun. Another thing that I want to talk about is that her cameras help teammates after death. Now, when you die as Valkyrie and your cameras are still up, you can still use those cams for intel and tell your teammates where exactly everyone is on the map, what exactly is happening, where the push is coming from, all those sorts of things. And lastly, as you guys can see on the graph, the hard data side of Ubisoft shows that Valkyrie actually has a higher pick rate and a tiny bit higher win delta. Now, this can show just that the hard data proves that she might be a little bit better than Pulse, but I feel like in practice it could be different. But this data is also taken from platinums and diamonds in ranked, so maybe in comp it might be a little bit different. Lastly, the other pros of Pulse would be that he's a 3-speed, Valkyrie is a 2-speed, so he's a little bit faster. I think that makes it a lot easier to roam with if you're a little bit faster. He has 2 primaries to choose from and 2 secondaries to choose from. You have a shotgun in the UMP, and then you have a 5.7 and a 1911 to choose from. And then lastly, He has a better stealth ability, and by stealth ability, I mean that you don't see a pulse scanner go off. You might hear it, but you don't see it. There's no visual cue unless you're playing IQ. When you're looking at for Valkyrie cams, there's a giant blue light around it, and that'll give it away, and it only takes one shot to kill the Valkyrie cam. So I think that he has a better stealth ability, and that stealth he can usually stay a little bit out of the way, or if he's underneath a site you might not know he's there, especially if he was hiding before. If he rotated downstairs after you guys did a roam clear, you might not know he's there. And so it's very important to see that he actually is a little bit quieter or a little bit stealthier against your team. Now, going on to the cons that I have for each character, I couldn't come up with too many cons for Valkyrie. I don't think she has too many. But I think one of the cons that is very relevant to her gadget, and I think this is what balances her gadget, is that if you want to use her gadget, so say if you're playing below as Valkyrie and you want to get a C4 off or something like that, or if you want to use her gadget and throw a cam outside, you actually have to either have a teammate or you have to use your cams to kind of see where everyone is and see kind of where to throw the C4, or you have to have someone ping for you. But either way, it requires an outside force, or you have to get on your cam and you won't be able to see anything right in front of you. Now, this can be a pro and a con. I feel like if it's coming down to like the last like 1v1, 1v2, having teammates is really, really helpful versus having to use your own gadget by yourself. But I think that is probably an important thing to note when you're picking between the two characters, so kind of just deciding what you want to do. And next, she is a 2-speed. I did mention that. Now, the cons of Pulse is his UMP. His UMP is not very good. The time to kill I don't think is very good. It's more of the rate of fire that is the problem. It's not so much the time to kill, though. Is the rate of fire, even though it shoots like a laser, it's very slow gun, so it's very, very hard to get a headshot. If you miss like a couple shots, they can dance in between your shots, so to speak. Also, now with the Pulse update that they recently did, Pulse's scanner is on toggle. It's no longer hold the button down to use it. In practice, I don't really like how they did this, but I'm also only used to being able to hold it, so I'm sure maybe in a little bit I'll get used to it, but I don't think that it has affected how long it takes to put away and pick up your gadget at all. Also, lower pick rate and win delta, and can't use your gadget after death. That's a huge one for me, is that you cannot use the gadget after death. I think that this is what kind of separates Pulse and Valkyrie, in that Valkyrie you can use her gadget after death. Pulse, you cannot use his gadget after death. If you die as Pulse, you pretty much, that gadget's gone and your roaming capabilities are gone, and so whatever you were doing to impact the round, it's all gone. Next, I want to talk about the counters. Now, the counter is actually pretty simple. These were pretty simple to come up with. Valkyrie cams can be shot by anyone, so I wouldn't call it necessarily a hard counter, but it's definitely a counter nonetheless. But the hard counters, I would say Thatcher's EMPs can disable her cameras. IQ can locate her cameras, so any electronic actually, so even pulse scanners she can locate. And then Twitch can zap her cameras, so the Twitch can actually destroy it. And going on to Pulse, I mean the two first are the same. Thatcher can disable his scanner, and then IQ can actually see his scanner through the ground or through a wall or through anything and see where he is. So you can give off your position a lot if they have an IQ on the team, but IQ actually, her pick rate has gone down, so you might actually get a lot luckier not having to really deal with the IQ, but I'm sure you'll probably end up dealing with a Thatcher, maybe even a Twitch in rank. Lastly, this is what I wanted to talk about, and this is kind of when I think the conversation excels. Their uses. Now, I think that both can be used underneath a site, or yeah, I'd say underneath the site. So playing vertically, I'd say it's pretty important to have maybe one or two people play underneath the site just to guard it, but having Pulse underneath the site is almost a given. So if you see a Pulse, he's probably going to go underneath. You need to get that bomb, especially in bomb. You need to be able to pretty much prevent the diffuser from going down. It's pretty easy to do with the C4, but you do it with a pulse scanner and you're doing it by yourself. So you're relying a lot on your own game sense and using your own skill instead of relying on your teammates. Versus Valkyrie, I feel like she can do that, but she's also very versatile. I feel like once she throws her cam down, she can go roaming on like a shallow roam versus going underneath. She can go maybe just a couple rooms over, or just maybe right next to the objective and be able to rotate back. I use Valkyrie and Pulse almost interchangeably though, because I usually play underneath or I usually roam with them. But I do think that Pulse's gadget is more useful underneath a site, especially in the last couple of seconds of a game, versus if Valkyrie's cams get destroyed, you don't really have anything to go off of. But the thing is, if Valkyrie dies and her cams are still up, that was a little more expendable than Pulse, who Pulse dies, you just lost a roamer and you just lost a gadget and a C4 off the board. So my take on this is, If I had to choose between Pulse or Valkyrie in a round, and I know sometimes it's situational, like if you're playing lockers or basement down in bank, you'd probably use a Pulse than Valkyrie because of the smoke problems. I would say that if I were to choose between the two just in any situation given, I'd probably end up picking a Valkyrie. Valkyrie's a very strong character, as I pointed out. All her pros, there are some cons, but I think that if you can hide her cameras really well and you become skilled with her gun, you just gotta find the attachments that work best for you. I usually use angled grip with a compensator and then either a reflex or a holographic depending on what I'm feeling. But I will usually use that loadout, and having the C4 really useful. Don't ever switch to the other gadget, and make sure to always use your deagle to open holes. It's really helpful. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys like this kind of video. This is inspired by a Reddit post. I'm gonna leave that link down below, and I'm gonna leave everything else linked down below that I talked about in the video. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. This is gonna be Josh Snipes signing off.
Get him, Josh, get him.
Protected at all costs.